What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here, back with another SWAC recruiting update, man. We started out with Florida A&M. We covered most of the Jackson State commitments, and then we had Alabama A&M earlier this week. We're moving, down to Grambling State now, man, where Hue Jackson is looking to build up his program as he was recently named the head coach, and he's gotten off to an extremely fast start as the head coach for Grambling. This class isn't as complete and as large as some of the other ones we've covered, but it still has some high quality prospects, and there's a lot of offers out there, a lot of recruiting news around Grambling right now. So I'm expecting big things in February for Hue Jackson in this program. Now, let's start off with what the needs are. There's these two are kind of intertwined, but it has to start with quarterback and wide receiver, man. It has to start with quarterback because Grambling had the worst passing attack in the SWAC last year, less than 125 passing yards per game, only 10 passing touchdowns for the season. And as a team, across multiple quarterbacks, completed less than 45% of their passes. That is not going to cut it if you want to win a SWAC title. Along with that, they had more interceptions this year as a quarterback group than they had touchdowns for the season, man. That is an atrocious stat. So quarterback was a huge need. And then for wide receiver, really stemmed from some of the quarterback issues, but they did not have that game-changing receiver that if you need a play, you could say, we're going to this guy. We're going to him every single time we need a play made in the red zone, in a crucial moment, or something like that. So they got to find one of those wide receivers. And they only had one wide receiver that ranked in the top 25 in the SWAC last year in yards per game, which was Greg White with only 46 yards per game for the season, man. So not great offensive production. Now, the other two needs really weren't strength, but they're positions that I think need some depth, and also just upgrading these positions could really take Grambling over the top in the SWAC championship race. It starts with defensive back. There's absolutely some solid young talent that can be developed. There's also Myron Stewart, Lawrence Asadu, Quincy Mitchell, all will be back next season, could offer some experience on the back end of the defense, but depth is key here, and bringing in some competition to upgrade the defensive backfield could really take this defense to the next level. They were getting after the quarterback at game in and game out. I believe they were third in the SWAC in terms of sacks this season. So the front seven was there. If you can get that secondary just a notch above, maybe two notches above where it was last year, Grambling's defense goes from good to one of the best in the SWAC. Now, the other one, with this Hue Jackson offense evolving and relying more on the quarterback game, wanting to, air it out a little bit, the offensive line is going to be huge. This was not a weak point last year at all. Top 5 in sacks allowed in the SWAC, but the O-line is extremely important to have depth, to have chemistry, and always bring in some competition to make sure you got the best front 5 in front of your quarterback. So that's why I'm going to put that as almost an auxiliary need for Grambling in this recruiting class. Now, who are the top commits? I won't spend a lot of time on this guy, but Kajaya Holloway, I've already made a video on him, so go check it out. But he was a quarterback, former 3-star UCLA transfer. Holloway was a 3-year starter in high school, led his program to the semifinals, to the playoffs multiple years, to a national championship game in 2018. And this kid put up crazy stats in his 3 seasons in high school, man. Over 6,700 yards, 64 passing touchdowns, and on top of that, rushed for 28 touchdowns on the ground. I break them down more in depth on the episode. I'll link it at the end of the video. But Holloway right now is one of the crown jewels of this class. And then you also have Tyrese Johnson, wide receiver, 3-star. He was a former Arizona commitment before, and then Kevin Sumlin was fired. He flipped to Memphis, ended up not signing. Is a 3-star kid out of Booker T, Washington in New Orleans, was the number 18 player in the state of Louisiana in the class of 2021. Man, this kid held offers from Arizona, Memphis, Arkansas, Florida State, Miami, LSU, and plenty more. When you look at his film, when you read all the scouting reports on him, Johnson, the number one thing he's going to bring is just toughness. I feel like he's one of those wide receivers that's really not flashy, but I would use the word gritty for him, where in the terms of run blocking for him on the outside, that's where he can excel. It's just his physical nature outside. And on top of that, that really helps him in one-on-one coverage, go up, win those one-on-one matchups. And he just has the ability. He doesn't have a lot of top end speed, but he can make people miss in a phone booth. And that's something you really want to see in a wide receiver, make someone miss an open space and get those yards after catch. And that is where Johnson is really going to be dynamic for Grambling moving forward. So that's what he's going to bring. He might be overlooked in terms of this class, but I think Johnson overall is a huge addition for Hue Jackson and should see the field early and often for Grambling next year. And then, of course, a lot of people were talking about this kid when he committed. J.R. Waters, 3-star former Oregon and Southern Utah wide receiver. He committed to Oregon before transferring, and now he's going to aim to resurrect his career for Grambling in this Hue Jackson offense, man. Another kid out of California to go along with Holloway that Grambling has now landed, was a top 70 wide receiver in the class of 2019, a top overall 550 player coming out of Oxnard, California. Finished his high school career 27 receiving touchdowns, was the offensive player of the year for his district as a senior, a multi-time all-division selection in high school, and in his senior year had over 1,000 yards receiving and averaged over 25 yards per catch. This kid can be a deep threat, and he utilizes a unique set of acceleration, route running, and just overall length and just presence as a wide receiver to get open downfield. He's going to be a giant target for whoever wins the QB battle. His number one skill is body control and his catch radius. This kid has extreme length for a wide receiver, and really and truly that's something that Grambling's offense was missing. His catch radius is on point, which is really going to help, because one of the big struggles for Grambling last year at the quarterback spot was the fact that their quarterbacks were not putting the ball where it needs to be. Waters can help correct that and give a little bit of leeway to some of these quarterbacks if they're not on point in any given weekend. He's going to fit perfectly into Hue's offense. And for me, I think he's a day one starter for Grambling going into next year, just because of the scheme fit and what he brings, and just in terms of big play threat. Now, I think this kid is probably the most underrated recruit in the class, and I believe it's Narcissus Driver is how you pronounce his name. Tight end, former 3-star JUCO guy, Southern Miss transfer. He went the JUCO route, played at Highland Community College in Kansas. That's the Independence and one of the last chance U division. But he was a second-team All-American up there in 2018. Committed to Southern Miss. Played in the first 4 games of the season. He had an injury, kept him out the past 2 seasons, but in those 4 games had 2 catches, 62 yards, and a touchdown. Also had a passing touchdown for a 2-point conversion in those 4 games. And the reason I say he's very overlooked is, his recruiting statistics and things like that aren't going to pop off the page compared to some of these other guys, but he's an ultra athletic tight end. I'm talking about Kamari Everett, athletic at the tight end spot, and he's going to fit into so many roles in Hue Jackson's offense. He's 6'3", 266, and was clocked at running a 4.5 out of high school. That is going to allow him to see the field early and often, and on top of that, be used in the slot. They can move him outside. They can use him as an H-back, use him as a formal tight end. This kid's going to fit all over the place in Hue Jackson's offense, and I think Driver really and truly could be the most impactful transfer, because one of the things I've been screaming is that the SWAC as a whole needs to utilize tight ends more. Driver has the athleticism to be a game-changing tight end, a lot like Kamari Everett was last year for Bethune-Cookman. So look for Driver's name to be called a lot this next fall for Grambling. And then finally, Kevin Thomas, coming out of Lake Charles High School, a defensive back, 6 foot 180. He's really one of the overlooked guys of the class just because he's not going to, set the star alerts off, Light on Sports, and all them aren't going to be like, oh my God, he's transferring from this school. He's an overlooked kid, a local kid. And for me, he's probably not going to see a lot of action next season, but I think he's a very important developmental piece for Grambling moving forward. I think he's a redshirt guy this year, and then we're going to see him emerge in the next 2 or 3 seasons. But Kevin Thomas has a lot of athleticism, a lot of things to work on, and I'm interested to see how this coaching staff develops him moving forward. Now, for players to watch, man, that's the recruiting class as of right now. As I'm recording, things can change very quickly. So we'll keep you guys updated on all things coming out of Grambling. But some players to watch in the portal right now for this Grambling team. Now, it starts with a kid out of North Texas, an offensive tackle, Raven Crum. This kid's got the size, he's got the experience coming out of, an area where I think Hue Jackson can establish a bit of reach in that Texas area. I think he could come in immediately, challenge for some playing time at that offensive tackle spot, and at least, if anything, offer a bit of depth that you can rely on if you're Hue Jackson in this new offense. Also, the cornerback out of Houston, Kelvin Clemens, out of that Houston area where I think that Grambling and Hue Jackson need to extend their reach toward. They can pull him in. He immediately offers them a long DB that has great ball skills, that played in a very, very good and underrated Houston defense. I think Kelvin Clemens could fit perfectly into what that defensive scheme is kind of evolving toward for Grambling, and could be that piece I was mentioning earlier to take their secondary over the top. Now, Chris Adamora out of Texas, a 4-star safety in the transfer portal, is the other guy in the secondary I would look forward to. It's a stretch, and that would be a huge get for Grambling, probably arguably one of their best recruits of this class. But if I'm Hue Jackson, I'm making the call and say, you can be that missing piece at that safety spot that we need to take this defense over the top. So I would make the call if I'm Hue Jackson. Also, Quentin Bivens, defensive lineman, Ole Miss, in the portal. He's a strong, athletic, and defensive lineman. He played inside at Ole Miss, but he can play the edge spot. But I would want to see Grambling put him inside and be one of those interior run stoppers on an already loaded defensive line. But Bivens would just add even more depth and more versatility and talent to an already stout front seven for Grambling. Those are just some names to watch that I think would be good fits that are, recruiting fits in terms of areas and things like that. So pay attention to some of those names moving forward, and we'll keep you guys updated right here on the Blue Bloods on all the latest. Now, for grading, to end this episode off, man, I gave Jackson State an A. I gave Alabama A&M an A-. I gave FAMU a B+. I think the quality of recruits are amazing right now for Grambling. I do want to see a bit more action in terms of what they're picking up. I don't think they have the overall numbers yet to be an A. I'm going to give them a B right now. And as they add more prospects, if they can continue to keep up the quality and just add, I would say 3 or 4 more pieces, this could be an A class. But right now, I'm going to give Grambling a strong B. They answer the quarterback need. They answer the wide receiving need. And now I need to see them land a defensive back and then land some offensive linemen to really add some depth at those 2 positions. But ultimately, Hue Jackson is doing big things for Grambling right now. He's doing an outstanding job on the recruiting trail, and I'm very, very excited to see what Grambling has going forward. And I really can't wait to make a game at the Hole next year, man. That's one of the stadiums I really want to cross off on my SWAC list. So that's the latest on Grambling recruiting, man. If you're new, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button now, and comment your thoughts on Grambling's class and Hue Jackson's job as of right now as a whole, man. So let me know in the comments below. But guys, make sure to stay tuned. More SWAC recruiting updates, more bowl game previews, more interviews coming up with some great players. So stay tuned right here on the Blue Bloods for all that content. But until next time, guys, the Blue Bloods are out.